much.
Thank you, Shai Saab, for giving the historical background and raising some very important points. Today we have about 128 participants in the webinar, which shows the interest in the subject. May I now request the next speaker, Mr. R.P. Singh. Mr. R.P. Singh is former chairperson of UPERC. He has been writing very interesting blogs on various important issues facing the power sector. Recently, he has also written a book on energy transition. Mr. R.P. Singh.
Thank you. With your permission, I'd like to use a PowerPoint to convey my views and share.
Sure.
I hope this can be seen by all.
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah, it's good.
So today I'm going to talk about the market coupling of power, which is being proposed by the CERC. And I must thank IE for giving me this opportunity on this very important and one of the most contested regulatory initiatives in the power sector in recent years. If we really see, it has been already pointed out that we have 3 exchanges and the dominant IEX is the dominant one with more than 99% share. So I'll not spend much time. But the depth of the market is very critical for us to understand. The day-ahead market as a percent of total electricity is less than 4%. It's about 3.4% only. And RTM last year was about 2.98%, about 54 billion units. And the short-term market combined with other trades, etc., OTC and others is 13%, and rest all are long-term PPA based. So this is the power exchange landscape in we are trying to implement the market coupling. Actually, it is not a market coupling because India is a unified market, and the concept has been borrowed from the European areas where have got the different regions which are coupled. So what we are actually proposing to do is the exchange coupling rather than but calling it a market coupling. The CERC has on 17th April notified the draft second amendment and highlighted certain new draft regulations. And now it proposes to designate Grid India as the sole permanent market coupling operator, replacing the earlier round robin model. And Regulation 39, draft Regulation 39 now defines the scope that this market coupling will be for DAM and RTM, and with a staged notification date that will be flexibility in implementing in a staggered manner. It has also proposed a new Regulation 39A and 39B, establishing the architecture that there will be uniform bid format and secure encrypted transmission to the market coupling operator by the exchanges. And the price discovery will be on the principle of maximizing economic surplus, and there will be market splitting for congested corridors. It also proposes new Regulation 39C to mandate a market coupling procedure, which will be a detailed operational rule book that Grid India must formulate within 6 months. And the Commission will approve that procedure. This is one of the key factors of the whole process. It means that algorithm to be used, the encryption protocols, the settlement procedures, and contingency rules will be spelled out before the market coupling goes live. There is also a new rule 39D, which has been extended to the existing exchange obligation. That means the Grid India shall have the same IT infrastructure, cyber security protocols and algorithm, etc. Everything they have to do as per the exchange. So the MCO will function. The power coupling procedure will define the roles and responsibilities, operational sequencing, that what will be carried out in what step, bid format encryption, price discovery algorithm, and settlement clearing, etc. These functions are in the draft regulations. And the shadow pilot has already been discussed by Mr. Nath, so I'll not go much in detail about that. But objective has to be maximization of welfare gain and splitting of the market in the congestion side. And the economic gains in the shadow pilot has been very minuscule. There is also an issue of ignoring the earlier 29 months pilot and relying on only 4 months pilot without giving any specific reason by the commission. That is a point which we need to consider. So, but overall, why the welfare gains are so small? It's simple because the market depth is very shallow. There's hardly any competition. The market coupling needs a deep competitive market with multiple active exchanges. And in Indian context, when one exchange holds around 99% of the market, the aggregate bid curve from coupling is nearly identical to that exchange's own bid curve. So there is no meaningful difference and hardly any arbitrage that will appear. The gains will be mathematically, it will be moving towards the zero value. And second point is that coupling needs a large actively traded short-term market, which is not there. As I have already pointed out, the DAM is less than 4% and RTM is less than 3%. So even if we do market coupling, the welfare gains are not going to be very significant. Now, with the draft regulation, there are certain concerns which have emerged. Mr. Sahi has eloquently pointed out, and in fact, I have been writing in my blogs that Grid India has got some conflict of interest under Section 27(2). However, I differ from Mr. Sahi on one point that the conflict of interest may be technically permissible because MCO will not be buying or selling electricity, because trading means you buy and sell the electricity. So MCO will not be doing that. But if we take in the form of a spirit, there are certain conflicts, because the Grid India will receive all the pre-cleared bid data, buy bid, sell bid, price, volume, etc. before the market clearing. And this is the most commercially sensitive information for the power sector. And Grid India also procures ancillary services, which is after the great closure of the dam. So that means Grid India as a procurer is privy to information, undisclosed security information, that what is happening in the market, and it is going to buy that ancillary services from that. So that is a serious conflict of interest, and merely creating an MCO, internal MCO safe, will not solve the organizational purpose. So there is conflict of interest that has to be seen. The second flaw which I could identify was that in the APTEL's order of February 13, it was directed by APTEL that to keep away the regulatory making exercise on market coupling from the officers who were named in the SEBI's order. Unfortunately, in the draft regulation, no such disclosure has been made or done by CERC. So it's not only non-compliance, but also it is important from the point of view of regulatory trust, because it is foundational. They might have not engaged them, but they also need to disclose that they have not done. So this is one point that has to be also kept in mind, because transparency, proactive transparency, would make the whole process legitimate and acceptable. Then the third case is that economic case has not been made transparently. The gains are marginal, welfare gains are insignificant. And another important point is that the regulation mandates that PMCP will be approved by the commission. But it is completely silent whether the draft PMCP will be published for for public comments before their approval or not. Because if the stakeholders are not consulted in the whole procedural formalities done by MCO, then that means it is lacking transparency, and one irregularity which was there in the earlier order will be replaced by another irregularity. Concern 5 on the market depth precondition has been already highlighted, and independent audit is necessary for meaningful coupling. Coupling has not been mentioned, and operational procedure, etc., has also been not met. Now, one more aspect which is missing is the cost benefit analysis, because this whole operation will require some capex and opex which has to be met. The regulation provides for recovery of the cost, but how the cost will be recovered, that is not clearly defined. And if we see roughly about 40-50 crore will be capex required, and about 18 to 32 crores will be on the OPEX, which will be required. It is silent on the cap recovery. There is no methodology which is mentioned, whether it will be cost plus or volume linkage, or it will be flat fee, whether the exchange pass on MCO charges to the market participant, whether the MCO charges are within or above the 2 paisa limit. So, or whether there will be a mechanism of annual true up and refund mechanism. This equally important because CERC recently in December 2025 has floated, the staff paper has been floated for reduction of the exchange fee from 2 paisa to 1.5 paisa per unit. So on one hand, we are talking about reducing the fee, but if MCO will be allowed to charge fee, then let us see how much fee they can charge. So DAM volume is about 65 billion units, RTM volume is about 55 billion units. So roughly 120 billion units. And even if we consider 5 paisa per unit, so roughly 60 crore will be allowed to be recovered, which is more than the current welfare gain. So the cost benefit has to be seen in the whole context, which is missing in this exercise. So this is the summary aspect of whole proposal. MCO model has been set right. Conflict of interest has not been set right. Implementation timeline they have notified, but the procedure is still doubtful. The algorithm audit provision has been made. The stakeholder notification is for the regulation, but not for the PMCP. SEBI compliance is missing, economic justification is missing, market depth is missing, and implementation date uncertainty is still not there. So, how to correct it? For conflict of interest, they should seek some legal opinion about whether the Grid India as MCO can function as market coupling operator subject to section 27(2) or not. And CERC should also in their final regulation should confirm that the APTEL order on recusal of the concerned staff is there. Publish full shadow and pilot data set with cost benefit analysis. Introduce a public consultation process for PMCP, and also ensure that market deepening exercise is done before the coupling. So unless until these are done, there is not a meaningful correction. It is an incomplete reform. Now, I have added 2 more parts to my whole presentation to give a flavor of better understanding. And the second part, I'll try to briefly compare it, how the market coupling is done in primarily the European region, which from where this whole idea has been considered. So in European market, basically they have a concept of single day ahead coupling, and they have a different. There are 5 key dimensions of regulation in the European region: the market structure, MCO governance, algorithm design, congestion management, and regulatory oversight. So Europeans, market is basically on the bidding zone base or regions through coordinated cross-border transmission of capacity allocation and price discovery. Whereas in India, the current proposal is essentially coupling of power exchanges operating within a single national grid and single regulatory jurisdiction. While the concept is sound, but currently appears to be premature because of that and other issues which I'll just highlight. The market structure is totally different. In European regions, the DAM is penetration region-wise varies from 30 to 60%, and in India is less than 4 to 3%. I have wrongly mentioned it is 3% here. And there are more than 10 exchanges with genuine competition which will be participating. But in India, there are 3 exchanges, only one is dominant one. No single exchange dominates, but in India, we have a dominant exchange. Pre-coupling prices spread were real and meaningful, and coupling where welfare gains were real and meaningful, but in India, there's not there. Bilateral contracts is a minority, but in India, bilateral contracts are majority. The dimension 2 is about who runs the market coupling in Europe. So it's basically in Europe, they follow the model of competitive neutrality, but what we are proposing is a centralized concentration. So in the single day ahead coupling, the functions of price discovery, congestion declaration, or ancillary procurement and pre-clearing data is all divided between different agencies. Like, for example, price discovery is done by PCR consortium of power exchanges, which is jointly owned and no system operator is involved. Congestion declaration is done by TSO, which is separate from MCO and exchanges. Ancillary procurement is TSO largely separate, no access to pre-clearing data. And pre-clearing bid data is firewalled and shared between platforms, and there's no human readable access before clearing. But in India, all the 4 functions is being proposed to be done by a single entity, that is Grid India. So this creates certain vulnerability. So if we have pre-clearing bid data, and all these functions with the MCO, then there are certain vulnerability and risks which will be. I'll come to them point by point. Let's see the algorithm comparison. Algorithm in European region, they use Euphemia, and in India is yet to be publicly notified. The European algorithm is multi-party governed and continuously monitored. But India draft regulation, it has not been formulated yet. It has not been shared with the public for scrutiny, etc. Although it provides audit before go live and every 2 years thereafter, but it doesn't have any continuous monitoring mandate between audit, which is a serious flaw, because there are parameter drifts which can happen between the audit period. I'll explain in next following slides what are these nuances. So our algorithm framework is also quite different and not designed as per the European system. The congestion management is again different. India's specific risk is that Grid India declares the inter-regional corridor congestion and uses a separate. So what the discretion may create certain market intervention. Say, for example, illustrative price, say if you create a region, then the prices of region where market prices were different before congestion will alter after congestion. So is the discretion of the TS, the system market coupling operator, which is Grid India, which is also the NLDC, to decide whether to have 80% or 90% as the congestion level. Then surveillance mechanism in European region is there is a independent remit, which is regulation on wholesale energy market integrity and transparency, which does that. And it covers every aspect: insider trading, market manipulation, false information disclosure, etc., etc. And then the Agency for Cooperation of Energy Regulators, like ASA is like what we have here in CERC, and each and every aspect is under regulatory surveillance. But in Indian context, the CERC regulates the power market, SEBI regulates electricity derivative. There is no formal coordination protocol. The second risk is that the pre-clearing MCO bid data is not classified as unpublished price sensitive information under SEBI, because this is the most critical thing, and there are different protocols to be followed for UPSI, which is not there. Then these points I have already stated, so I'll not repeat that. So if we compare, there are issues of deficiency in market depth, MCO governance, algorithm transparency, algorithm change coverage, congestion input separation, pre-clearing data, regulatory surveillance, and audit is provided. Staged implementation is allowed. Stakeholders consultation is only for regulation, not for PMCP. So these are the governance gap which remains. 5, structural deficit. There is no separation of Grid India 4 functions. Algorithm not public documented is a black box risk. Pre-clearing data not classified as UPSI, and no formal SEBI SERC coordination protocol. PMC process not open to public consultation. So how we can set right before PMCP is finalized? SEBI and CERC should have some sort of understanding to notify this pre-clearing data as UPSI, and CERC should do all these steps. Then it will perhaps meet the deficit or governance gaps which are existing there. Now, third part of my slide is related to basically why market coupling is being done. Is it being done only because of welfare, or there are certain concerns also related to the operations of the exchange? Informally, in some discussions, it was one of, I'll not name, but it was shared that there are instances of certain riggings in the price discovery which is taking place somewhere in the exchanges, etc. So my third part is briefly on that, how market coupling will impact or affect that concern. So market rigging analysis is what I'm calling it, and it will deal with how the risks which were there in the exchange operations earlier, the rigging risk, how they are going to continue or vanish or change. So the finding is that market coupling, while it doesn't create manipulation, but it will inherit it. So whatever rigging possibilities were there, they will continue to be there. I have categorized them into 3 categories. First is carried forward. That means whatever there was risk which was prevailing in the exchanges, that will remain. The second category is which will be carried forward but amplified. That means it will increase in the magnitude. And third is the new risk which will be created. So first is the bid manipulation, which is existing on exchanges today, unchanged by coupling. So it will not go away. Then regulatory leak, which has already happened in the SEBI instance cases, that may remain. Then mark to market timing attack. I'll just come and explain what this is with reference to DAM prices, whether couple or not, will remain. The what will be amplified will be congestion gaming, and that means the same entity NLDC, which declares what level of congestion and then splits the market, will affect the market clearing price, will remain and amplified. The algorithm parameter drift is one of the most technical and complex risks, which remains with the algorithm and which is hardly discussed in public domain. That gets amplified, and algorithm inside centralization risk will also remain. I'll explain each and every one in one slide each. And then seventh is the new risk which will be created by coupling is pre-clearing data concentration. That means single entity will see all the data of all the three exchanges, and this will be the unique type of risk which has got a very, very high impact on the whole integrity of the process. So I think the PMCP must address these three categories so that it remains a transparent and an integrity-based system. So let us try to understand how the things will happen. These are uncodified timelines. That means, say, bid closure for DAM takes place at 12, and the bid transmission has to be done by whatever time the PMCP does. And then in the next whatever time, say 15, 20 minutes or 25 minutes, MCO does the computation and runs the MCP engine and clearing coupling engine and discovers the price, and then result is published. In this window, MCO must do bid aggregation, congestion handling, optimization, market splitting, and market clearing price computation. So these are the activities which has to be taken place. And for RTM, it will be further reduced. So the whole, when you run the solver, the runtime solver, the coupling engine, it must discover the whole price within a stipulated time frame. So that is the key, which I'm going to explain later how it is going to affect. So solver duration. So solver duration is the time for which you run the coupling engine. So it depends upon the data, the volume of data, and if you want to have a higher level of coupling accuracy, then you run it for a longer duration. So this, say you run for 30 seconds, then you'll have a relatively better solution which will come out. But if you reduce it to 5 seconds, then the deterministic method, that means the error chances will remain high. So you'll get a suboptimal clearing price. So MCO has got control. Although you will say that algorithm is hashed into the server and nobody can change it, but nobody can, it is auditable within a 2 years period, etc., etc. But the issue is runtime environment. The program is hashed onto the server, so nobody can touch it. Only it is done through audit that if you change the log, etc., verify. But runtime environment depends upon the machine which is not fixed by the server. So you run the duration. If during the lean market period, the number of bids will be less. In the highly peak period market, the number of bids will be higher. So if the MCO changes that duration, the outcome will be different. If you run it for shorter period, it will be helpful to the dominant exchange like that. So this is one key which can be easily done by the MCO if it is not covered under the risk mitigation measure. Then, as I have mentioned, there are 7 attack vectors by which the rigging can be done. Bid manipulation method, which is already existing. Algorithm insider leak, that means the MCO cell officers can share that how the program is going to work out the market clearing price, what are the constraints, what are the methods, etc., etc. If it is not put in the public domain, it can be shared by the MCO cell officers. Then pre-clearing data leak, that the MCO cell officers will have access to all bids of all 3 exchanges, which is not notified at UPSI. So that whoever has got access can do that. Mind you, the SEBI thing happened once. This can happen with each and every clearing. Timing and latency attack is another thing. When your time stamping is not done properly with the bid, or for some reason or other, the one of the exchanges it does not send its data to the MCO on some technical pretext or etc., etc., and he has got access to other information which is shared by other exchanges for that time. So that has to be covered. Congestion gaming, I have already mentioned, and algorithm parameter drift and regulatory notification drift. These are the 7 attack vectors. Bid manipulation, I have mentioned. The generator in a market, say 950 is the demand, and G1, G2, G3, G4 are the generators. So here the marginal generator, he knows that he is the marginal one. He can easily enhance his bid from 5 to 545, and then he can make every time block certain additional money. This is only for the energy part, but the multiplier effect comes from the derivative part, because although in the final settlement of derivative you have weighted average of the all traded price, but on the daily side basis it is mark to market risk. So it will amplify through the derivative market. In the mark to market, whatever is the lot size which is being traded, that will impact the lot size. So this is one of the risk which is there. The second is algorithm risk insider leak, that I have already stated. Safeguard is required that publicly documented algorithm should be put in public place, and independent audit by ring fence auditor with 2 years energy market cooling off. That means whoever is doing the audit should not be allowed to do any sort of trading or access to the energy market. It should be cryptographically signed version, and any changes should trigger re-audit and monthly review of all access logs. So these safeguards are necessary. Unless until these safeguards are done, it will be critical. Then pre-clearing data leaks, I have already stated that it should be formally classified as undisclosed price sensitive information in the SEBI framework, and log etc. should be monitored. Timing and latency attack is, I just mentioned that if one exchange on some pretext or other delays transmission of his data by some couple of minutes, he has got access to others' data during that period. Congestion gaming by NLDC will affect the price with the splitting and without the splitting. For that, the safeguard required is, that means the grid capacity input has to be independently verified. It should not be solely at the NLDC discretion. We need to have some sort of committee which does this congestion for the whole clearing business. And there has to be a separate governance protocol between NLDC and MCL function within the grid India. And unless it will be compartmentalize these activities, the risk will get concentrated. Algorithm parameter drift is, as I mentioned, one example I have already given, that you change the run engine duration, coupling engine duration from say 30 seconds to 10 seconds. It will give a different output. So that, and this algorithm, this 2-year audit is a very long duration. You know, anyone can do anything within that 2-year period, and it will not get reflected, because you can. It's like if you are cooking something and recipes said, you have a recipe which you have developed and put it in the lock and key, but the cook, he has got access to the oven. He can set the temperature, so the whole dish will come out to be different. This is a similar exercise. The runtime environment of the system is still used by the operator, even if you have an algorithm which is standard. Regulatory notification leak is the SEBI case that is already there. So why this is happening? Because all 4 functions, why this may happen is because all the 4 functions will be with one direction. And these are the visibility and detectability I have tried to work out. This is low visibility, that means it's difficult to detect, and it has got high impact. Pre-clearing data is low to detect, but has got a high impact, very high daily, and detectability is low. Like that, these are the vectors which will affect the whole process. And the safeguard is for algorithm integrity, public documentation, cryptographically signed, auditors firm with 2 years cooling off, procedural hardware, timestamp, bid deadlines, and zero human override should be there. Congestion declaration should be by committee with a auditable methodology. Any PMCP deviation should be reported to the commission, and PMCP to publish 30 days public comment before commission's approval. Data access control is declaration of UPSI, real-time access logging. MCO cell staff prohibited from trading electricity security tenure plus 6 months post. SEBI CRC formal MOU on sharing of protocol, regulatory process integrity, Grid India structural separation, IT system and credential, not a policy, that should be ensured. And market surveillance is the key thing that needs to be strengthened. Currently, there is no visible market surveillance which is happening for the power sector. So that needs to be strengthened. And there are mentions in the regulatory regulations, but how it is functioned, who are doing it, and what are its reports, they are not put in the public domain. So to conclude, I think market coupling may be required, but right now it is premature. In its present context, it can be rigged. So it need not to rigged. So we need to have safeguards which will make it acceptable for everyone. So with this, I'll conclude my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any question, comment, subject to the timeline of moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for a very, very elaborate presentation. I think it covered practically everything. All risk mitigation, you have covered everything. Thank you so much.